Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast with your host, Charles Kiriakou. Today, you've got a special episode. I'm joined by Laura Clark, the Group CEO of OA Recruitment Solutions. Laura, how's it going today? You all right?
I'm brilliant. I've had a mental week, but I really look forward to speaking to you today, Charles. So, a lovely call on a Friday to do. So, yes, thank you for the intro.
Amazing. So, just as a quick FYI for everyone, Laura gave me a bit of a panic attack the other day when she said, "What's the specific location of London that we're supposed to meet in?" And I was like, "It's
Yes.
remote."
Well, that's just me all over. Honestly, I have people now. This sounds really arrogant of me, and it's not. But like my diary management has been one of my weakest skill sets in my whole entire life and career. So anyone out there that's trying to succeed who's poor at time management is different to diary management. But I looked at my diary and thought, oh my God, I've got to get to London and back in 2 minutes. So I'm glad that
Panic
it
to
was
me.
online. Yeah,
But no, look, thank you so much. Obviously, we met at the Recruitment Agency Expo. I've been in your office and met Natasha as well. You're all
yeah,
absolutely amazing people. But for people that may not know who you are, what you do, your background, etc., give us all a bit of a introduction to who you are and what you do.
yeah. So yeah, my name's Laura Clark. I am the owner of a company called is the OA Group, but we have two brands. We have OA Recruitment and OA Solutions. The business has actually been going for 30 years next year, which is massive. And when I say that, people look at me as if I just look really good for being quite old. I was not the founder of the company. I've got four children, and I am on an absolute mission alongside the 50 other people in the business to just, can I swear?
Yes, absolutely.
To fuck things up in recruitment. I think it's an amazing industry, but I'm just on a mission to make things as best as they can be and build a really strong business.
Amazing. And it's very in line with what my mission is in what I've been doing and the whole goal of the podcast, which is to get 1% better, which I'm sure we'll get more than 1% better after
Yeah,
this episode.
only one,
Well, minimum 1%.
minimum one. Okay.
Yeah. So look, as per usual, we've got at least three or so topics, but they're just going to roll into a nice conversation. And when Laura and I first spoke on the phone, we spoke about quite a few different topics.
Uh-huh.
And we're both very, very aligned and think very, very similarly around how to be successful in recruitment, the sacrifices it takes to be successful in recruitment. And there's a few other things that we're going to really, really get into the meat of. But the first thing you mentioned when we first spoke, you said something to me around like choose your sacrifices, or it was something along those lines, like to be successful. And I really believe in this. And I had a debate with someone yesterday about this, but to be really successful in anything, you can't go to the gym 4 hours a day and then be the best recruiter in the world or the best business owner in the world. You can't go to the pub with your friends for 2 hours every single night and be the most successful person in the world. Like you have to sacrifice whatever the things are to be successful. But look, you've had a phenomenal career so far, and what you're doing is amazing. Talk to me through what your thoughts are around the sacrifices and how essentially to build a successful business or a successful career in this industry.
Yeah, it's really contradicting what I'm about to say, right? Because I come from two separate elements of this. Number one, I think to do or be successful in anything, you have to be obsessed about it.
Mm,
And it's really funny because OA stands for something completely different other than obsessed about, but it's kind of forming that mentality of
mm,
you can still have a good work-life balance. You can still enjoy the things that you do. And I think it's important to make sure that you come to work and show up and you're not overtired and you're prioritizing yourself and you're feeling energetic. We've all felt close to burnout. There's been
mhm,
times where I've sat at my desk and I think I'm actually not doing anything because I'm so tired.
mm.
I need to take a break. But equally, you have to have the passion. You have to be obsessed about it. You have to be at the gym thinking about it. You have to be
Yeah.
going to bed going, oh my God, I've got these ideas. I can't wait to wake up and tell so and so about
Mhm.
this. Building a business doesn't come without blood, sweat, and tears. And anyone that tells you differently, honestly, is lying, or they've gone through it and they're in now a fortunate position where they can harp on about work-life balance.
Yeah.
And I do see that a lot. I don't ever see anyone in the thick of it building a business saying they have great work-life balance. I see successful people sitting back with a team around them saying work-life balance is so important. And I don't
Mm,
think that's very genuine. I
mm.
don't think that's very authentic. Yes, I've got four children. Yes, I have to make sacrifices, but I actually perform better when I sleep well,
Mhm.
when I eat and don't drink, and I get time in for myself, whether that's a quick walk between calls. So I think, look, what I'm saying is You don't need to be 24/7 because that is not healthy, but
Mm,
you have to really believe in what you're doing and have a real connection to it and be
mm,
obsessed about it. Otherwise, it's just probably not going to work, because when things go wrong, you have to believe so strongly in the mission that you
mm.
believe you can get yourself out of it. I think a lot of people are in positions where it's going well and you don't really test the true passion you have for something until it really goes wrong.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I was speaking to someone the other day about this. There's been a couple of recruiters that I trained, and two of them said to me about, you know, do I go out and do my own thing? And one of the two, I said yes. The other one, I was just like, I think you should just get another job and see how you get on. I've got my own opinion on who I think has the minerals, so to speak, to do their own thing or to run a business. But from an expert like yourself, I mean, what do you think needs to be inside of someone to then go off and actually do their own thing? What's the kind of mindset and
In
personality
terms of
traits,
start their own
etc.?
business,
Yeah.
you have to enjoy business, because
Mm,
I mean, we were having a brief conversation before we started recording. What I think people don't realize, and I've seen and I've had people that have worked for me that have left and go and started up on themselves, and
mm,
genuinely hats off. Like, I've never
mm.
feel a certain way about that. There's enough business out there for us all to do that,
Yeah.
right? But people in recruitment don't understand that if you're billing 250, 300K, they think, hey, that's in my pocket if I go and do it for myself. But what comes with running a business means that you end up not doing the thing that you loved, and you end up
Mm,
doing something completely different, billing less, trying to run a business. So I've always actually genuinely enjoyed business. I'm really quite a sad person. When I was at school, I used to read business books for fun. I used to genuinely, honestly, I could still, I could draw you the picture that was on the front of my A-level business book. I was obsessed by it. So for me, the drive wasn't, I want to bill the most and earn the most money. There have been times in my career owning a business where I actually would have earned more being a really top biller.
really?
Absolutely. I've recruited people in this company that have earned more than me, and
Mm.
I'm the owner.
Oh,
So
wow.
your main motivation can't just be, I need to be the best and the top of. That's not how a good business is run. A good
Mm,
business is run by so many different pieces to the puzzle.
mm,
You've got culture, you've got the people, you've got actually the infrastructure, the IT, the finance, the payroll, the compliance, there is so many elements, the brand, the marketing, the
mm,
sales strategy. You have to be interested in all of those things to run
mm.
a successful business, or at least have people that can help you be interested, or do parts of
Yeah.
those jobs for you. So in terms of like personality traits, I think you've got to be a pretty selfish but
Mm.
selfless person.
Yeah. I get that.
Like, you have to know what your mission is and go for it, but at the same time, you have to make room for other people in your business to take part of the things that you love to
Mm,
enable them to grow. You have to be really good at understanding your cash.
mm,
Took me a long time to work that out. Took me a long time to work out that GP is not cash, profit is not cash, money in the bank is cash. That in itself is like a whole
yeah.
piece. And also, there was one line that I've got a guy that has helped me throughout my career, and he said to me, I called him one day and I'd had a really crap few weeks, and I'd said,
Mm,
what the hell is this? And he said to me, Laura, I'm going to say one thing to you, and it is, the good is never that good, and the bad is never that bad. And that line has stuck with me. Like, when you run a business, it can be really easy to get really pent up about the bad stuff and
mm.
really celebratory about the good stuff. But overall, it's all just one level, and you've got to try and keep that consistent level the whole way through.
Yeah, it's that consistency. I mean, you and I were speaking beforehand about the last 3 months or so, about how I was just like doing loads of BD. I've just signed up a load of clients, and this is what I'm just about to celebrate my first year, and like some months are just like astronomical. I'm like, oh my God. And then the
Yeah.
next month is like it's basically nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, it's so
Yeah.
difficult. What would you say then of since like really running the business, what would you
Mm.
say are like the top 2 to 3 challenges that you've faced that you've had to overcome?
Patience. When you're running a smaller business, particularly when you're all in the same room, to make really quick changes and be agile is easy.
Mm,
I could wake up in the morning. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but it's easy. I can
mm,
wake up in the morning and walk in a room of 10 when we've had teams of 10 and say, hey, I've got this idea. Should we try this today? Should we try this sales
mm,
technique? Should we try this new bit of marketing? And it's easy, to just get stuff done. When you grow the infrastructure of a business, you have to learn the right way, the right time
Mm.
to message and communicate. And it doesn't mean you can't be quick in change, but I've had to learn the nuances of how people feel about change. Not people don't love change as much as I love change.
Mm-hmm.
So I've really had to learn, and it's really funny because before this podcast, I've been banned talking to my FD, who's in the room behind me here.
What?
Yeah, she
Why?
banned me. We're on a break. Basically, because when I went on holiday for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
I had a catch up with her when I was back, and I asked her how her 2 weeks went, and she said to me, I've had the most productive 2 weeks. I said, oh, how come? And she said, because you weren't here.
Oh,
And I
wow.
said, right, okay, tell me about that. And she said, you interrupt me quite a lot. You come in and bounce ideas off me a lot. I can be in the middle of like doing a P&L and I have to stop and think. And I said, fair enough. Let's schedule time. But it's moments like that you have to understand that you're putting people on a mission and you've
Mm.
got to let them get on with that mission. You can't
Yeah.
distract them. So I'd
Mm.
say patience is one of the top things. And I would also say, secondly, never get above your station. Like I would go downstairs, and I have done. I did it yesterday. Go down, work with the team. I was in Milton Keynes branch on Wednesday. Pick up the phone and cold call with the team. I would help
Mm.
with any part of the role.
Mm.
And I think that's what like I think about me. If
Mm.
I was to go and join a business, I'd want to work for someone who didn't think they were more important to me.
Mm.
And I doesn't matter how much money or how successful or whatever happens in this business, I will never ever in a million years want to run a business where anyone thought that anyone, managers, anyone in this business was more important than someone else.
I love that.
Mm.
There's not enough recruitment business owners that do that, unfortunately. And I've had the discomfort of working for people
Pleasure.
like that before. Yeah, the pleasure. That's how I've had the pleasure.
Mhm.
I've learned from what not to be, basically. And there's a lot of recruitment business owners that set up with the sole intention that they want to grow the business, sell the business, and they want to be off the tools as soon as possible.
Yeah,
And I think sometimes recruitment business owners get off the tools way too quickly, and
yeah,
especially when they've got such an incredible network where they can pick up the phone, call a couple of people, get some jobs and pass it over type thing. But
yeah.
they're like, I'm past that stage of my career
I
now,
think
so
they're
I'm going
more
to kind of move
important for
back.
some reason.
Hmm. Yeah. What else would you say? What other sort of challenges have you had to overcome?
Other challenges I've had to overcome. Okay, I would say one fundamental thing with growing the business is I don't know how to word this correctly, right? But being a being a relatively young owner of a
Mhm.
company, I get flattered sometimes when people want to come and work here, and
Mm.
I will oversee challenges that I should spot. So I
Mm.
think get really particular and give yourself a really hard time about who you're bringing into the business. And
Mm.
I've made loads of mistakes, right? We'd all be
Mm.
lying if we haven't. But I think be as honest as you can about the company when you bring people in.
Mhm.
Even if you're bringing someone in to a team that's upside down that are behind targets, tell them
Mm.
and be really intentional about what the job is. We have spoken
Mhm.
about recruitment agencies pretending that the job isn't sales to
Yeah.
get someone on board. Then they come in and they don't realize how hard it is, how much resilience you need, how much rejection you get, how you can have the best month ever and then your candidates fall out and you're back down to zero. If you're not honest about that, people will just leave.
Mm.
So I think I've learned I never sell this company to anyone ever. I'll always say, like, it is not perfect. We do this
Mhm.
wrong. We want to get better at this. You need to come and help us do that. But these are the things we do really good, but these are the
Yeah.
things we're not great at. Do you want to be part of that? Because I think every business is a mess in some ways. No
Mm.
business is perfect.
Yeah.
So just kind of like own your mess.
Yeah. I like that. I like
Mm.
that a lot. There's two things before I forget. I want to backtrack a second, in a second, sorry, and talk a little bit more. I want to dig a little bit more into the mindset that you've had to progress your career and what the people that are high performing in your business, what their sort of mindset is. Um, But there was something else that you just said there a second ago that I wanted to sort of unpack. It will come back to me in a second. Let's just go back a second, talk about the mindset. We'll talk about you first, right? Because I'm not mistaken, you started off as a recruitment consultant. You've worked your way up through various different positions, worked in more sort of operational positions, and now obviously running the business. And you've talked through your challenges. What was the what would how would you describe your mindset from when you first started? Like, because I don't know if you're like me, like when I was an apprentice and I wasn't able to earn commission, I worked my ass off like I was earning commission. I kind of always, my mind was always like 2 years ahead. I was acting as if I was the team leader, the director, the
Yeah.
business development manager.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to work harder, smarter, relationship orientated. My mindset said there's nothing that you can't achieve. And
Yeah.
I put that down to my mum raising me, to be honest. But what about you? I mean, what's been your mindset from sort of the start of your career to since running the business? How would you describe that?
Really similar to yours, Charles, to be honest. It was really funny. We were talking about it this morning with one of my directors, Natasha, who you know well. Long story short, we've got a few people in the business that have a similar mindset, and we're talking about how do we
Mm,
get the most out of them. And I was saying to Natasha, that person, I'm not going to mention names, but really reminds me of me 10 years ago.
mm,
And we were talking about why, and she was like, oh my God, this is going to be a nightmare, you working with them. And I was like, I know, but I love it. Have you ever watched a video? I don't know who it is that's speaking. There's this video, it's all the time on my Instagram and stuff, and it's about how you should recruit the divas, the ones that
okay.
cause the problems, the one that challenges, the ones that come up with new ideas that you haven't thought about, the ones that aren't scared of like speaking up. I
Mm.
was like the biggest diva ever. Like I would probably sack myself from 10 years ago if I was trying to manage a team that would needed to conform. Like I would do the opposite of what anyone would tell me to do. I was a very naughty recruitment consultant. But it's only if I had to hit a number, I'd hit the number no matter what.
Mm.
And when I look at the mindset of that, it wasn't that I was like ruthless or horrible. I don't think hopefully, I mean, want to be a horrible person, but I was always one of these people that I would do what you've told me to do and more, and then I'd come knocking at your door asking for a pay rise in the next thing.
Mm.
And I'm not the type of person that would do what you've asked me to do or less and ask for a pay rise. I'd be like, look, I'm going to make myself so invaluable here that you're going to have to pay me more because otherwise I'm going.
Mm.
And I think that that kind of continuous drive, and I don't know whether you're born with it,
Mm.
I don't know what that is. And I think if anyone did, then that person would like be a multi-billionaire. But I've learned that I have to be less ruthless in some degrees. I
Mm.
was quite a ruthless, and when I first become a manager, I was a terrible manager, terrible manager. Um, and I've learned that it takes all shapes and sizes to be successful.
Mm.
And that's been a really hard lesson. Like I used to be as a quite reckless 20-odd-year-old, like it's my way or the highway, I do it
Mm.
right. And actually that is so not true. Some of the best people in my business are completely opposite to me. Take Natasha, for
Mhm.
example, and Karen, who's another MD. We have literally three completely different types of outlooks, perspectives,
Mhm.
personality, and I absolutely value that. 10 years ago, I'd have thought, nah, they're not good. Just
Mm.
because I was naive and impatient and quite stupid. So I think going back to your question, what is the mindset? I think it's just having that inner hunger.
Mm.
And also not being afraid. Like you can still be really good at what you do and overtake people in their career or
Mm.
and still be a good person. I don't know why,
Yeah.
particularly, and I touch this on women, but particularly with women,
Mm.
if you're known to be assertive or strong, you can also be known to be aggressive and
Mhm.
rude. And the two are so close together but very different.
Yeah.
Whereas unfortunately, I have seen scenarios of this where men can be strong, bold, and brave, and it's inspirational.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment because I similar to you. I mean, every book behind me in the bookshelf there are just business, psychology, mindset, like personal development books. And I got really, really deep into like psychology, personality traits, and stuff like that. And statistically, more men are disagreeable and risk takers as opposed to like again, I'm just talking broadly statistically. A lot of women are more sort of agreeable, nurturing, caring, etc. Which if you think about the recruitment job and one of the reasons why there are so many more men in this job, for example, my wife I think three of her four best friends worked in recruitment and quit after 6 months
I
because
really,
they didn't want to take risks. They felt they didn't want to have the rejection, various different things of the job they didn't want to do. And you and I had this conversation before we started recording about this exact same thing, right? I think for this particular job, is it nature? Is it nurture? Are you born with it? Is it because you were raised a certain way? I'm not entirely sure. But what you're doing, what a lot of recruitment businesses I work with are doing, are not selling the job like what it was sold to me before. Like year one, you'll earn 100 grand. Like, no, we need to like sell, like do the opposite to recruiters and almost kind of scare them. Because
yeah,
I got scared a little bit when I first met a recruiter in London, and he goes, "You're going to have to work ridiculous hours. You probably won't earn commission for the first 6 months. You're going to be in a really low salary. You're going to have to work long hours, etc." I was like, "Yeah, fine."
yeah,
Because for me, my biggest thing, and I'm a bit of an outlier, is I got into recruitment because I wanted to help people. I didn't realize that you would earn loads of money in it, which is
okay.
really, really bizarre. I wanted to help people. I'm a people person. I wanted to speak to people. And then lo and behold, if you do anything well in life, this is my belief, my philosophy. If you do anything well and you develop that skill extremely well, the money will always follow.
I agree. I actually
Always.
really agree with you.
Mm.
Did you earn commission?
Well, I so basically my career is a bit weird. So I done social care recruitment for like 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
Culture wise, just did not fit. You weren't allowed to speak to hiring managers in that sector for whatever reason. So it had to go through like government portals. And I was like, this is a bit weird. Hated the culture, left, and then continued my apprenticeship with a healthcare company. And on day one, they just gave me a book of 2,000 contacts and said, go. No training, nothing, just go and get some jobs, and then just put shitloads of pressure on me. And then I completed my apprenticeship in 6 or 7 months, maybe
Right.
7 months. So I fast tracked my apprenticeship. They gave me salary increase from a whopping 7K a year to 16K a year. Woo! It's like so
Amazing.
illegal in 2024. And then yeah, then they said, right, you can start earning commission. And because it was like contract, it was temp recruitment, I started to earn for a 20-year-old like really, really good money
Yeah.
in the first 2 years, bought like a fancy watch, bought a car and all the rest of it in like the first couple of years. But going back to what you said, I think the drive, the hunger, and the curiosity. I think there's other things, and resilience. I'd say those four things I see like a bit of a trend in recruitment from the years I've been in. I think those four things, if people can kind of work on those as a mindset and help put that into your sort of personality, I think any business you could be successful using those things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Curiosity is one of my favorites.
Mm,
I don't know how often, well, I can see it, how often people miss opportunities because they're just not curious. And genuinely drives me insane. And like it's like this running joke within my business, the people that know me well, like I'll be on a train and I'll leave having tried to recruit someone who was sitting next to me, or because I'm just genuinely like sitting there, someone will be working on their laptop and I'm like, hi, what are you doing? Like I'm just curious about what everyone's up to all the time, while I'll be on the phone and someone will say something and it will just trigger like, sorry, say that again. What did you just, you
Yeah.
said that there was a problem within this area. Okay, I know someone who might be able to help you with that. Just that curiosity
Mm,
is so, and I think that really helps you get through in your career, because you've got to remember that recruiters are quite often lone wolves. You're
mm,
interested in your billings and that's what you
mhm.
believe you're being measured on. Whereas I used to record all of the other areas of the business that I helped. And I didn't just mean financially either. Like
Mm,
there would be initiatives or ideas that I would come up with and think, hey, do you know what? I really think that we should be looking over here. Or I really think this bit
mm,
of tech that I saw at the Rec Agency Expo would be great for us. Or I met this
yeah.
guy, Charles, that I think would do. And I would think about things on a really like lateral place.
Mm,
And those people really excel within recruitment, because if you're just focused on billings and you're really good at billings, but you're not good at helping other people, you're not good at other people earning more than you, and you're really competitive beast,
mm,
unfortunately, those leaders sometimes end up as billing managers with a team and they fail at that point.
yeah.
So it's not just the number. Like I would rather
Mm,
have someone bill mid-level, but
mhm,
be able to attribute their success to other people's success, other ideas they've implemented in the company. Be able to say to me, Laura, do you know what? I was in MK and I noticed they might need a bit of training in this, or
mm,
I was with this person and I think they're really good at this. You should get them. People that think in that way are so
mm,
unique.
mm,
Like there is like a handful of those out there.
mm. when you were describing yourself as a bit of a diva and kind of like questioning things and having all these ideas, it just gave me flashbacks to when I worked at Projectus. Like
Really?
they
Were you a diva?
probably, yeah.
Yeah, you were a diva. There you go.
I just always had so many ideas, and the MD, like he did appreciate it, but I look back and I feel sorry for the guy sometimes because I was just a I was just a loose cannon, like genuinely a loose cannon. And I say this to people, and people like when I speak to recruiters and business owners and they go, "Oh, so and so's a bit nuts" or whatever, I'm like, you are preaching to the literal choir. I used to walk around with like this headband with a tennis ball on the end of it, put my headset on and just blast through 10, 15 business
Yeah,
development calls
that's quite weird.
while boxing. Yeah, it's very weird. I'd be doing like jumping, spinning kicks in the office, prepping for my calls. Like I've done some wildly weird stuff, but I figured out in my head how to like psych myself up, how to get myself into the
Yeah.
mindset, and that's how I succeeded in BD. And I wanted to backtrack as well something because I went through the same thing when I was a billing manager. I was so good at BD because I had zero fear. I had so many clients saying, "You're like a fucking pit bull with a bone. You just won't stop. Leave me
Yeah.
alone." I'm like, "You will work with me because I have value and I know the industry. You will work with me." And eventually they would, etc., etc. But when I hired the first guy, he was are you familiar with like the four personality colors, like the red? Yeah. He was a very blue personality and I was a very yellow. And they say that yellow and blue really clash. And for people that are like, Charles, what the hell are you speaking about? Yellow is
It's
like
like more
a
analytical, is that?
so yeah, blue is like super analytical. They're like perfectionists, typically like an engineer or a data analyst. Those types of people are blues. A green is like your HR manager, a care provider. They're very caring. A yellow is like a salesperson or somebody that's like extremely dynamic, very chatty. And a red is like your director, who's just to the fucking point. Some people think they're rude. They're just give me the answer, yes or no, bosh, done. He was blue, I was yellow. We clashed all the time. What I didn't realize in the first year of managing him was that he was the best resourcer I had ever worked with. He is the
Yeah.
best candidate qualifier I had ever worked with, and he closed candidates on salaries 20 grand less than what they were on, and I had 100% success rate in closing. He was phenomenal, but for the first few months or so, I was expecting him to do BD the way I done BD,
Yeah.
super relationship orientated, meet everyone for a coffee, go to expo, say hi to everyone. Not his fucking style. And
No.
I see this so often, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I've actually recently advised one of my clients that because they do like deep tech, I want you to go and hire a delivery consultant, a resourcer for each team, the US, the Europe team, and the other team. But I want you to look at entry level people that are introverted. I don't think you should be looking at the someone like me that's like fucking full of ideas and like 100 miles an hour. Get someone that is happy to do deep sourcing for your 8 different platforms that you have to source through. Someone that's super analytical, someone that's going to code and go and do process on the system properly, but equally are happy to qualify candidates in rigorous fucking detail. And I put that to them, and they were like, "We haven't actually thought about that. We thought as a business we want to hire more salespeople to get more jobs. Guys, you've got so many jobs, but no one can fucking fill them."
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I want to get your because obviously, yeah, you and I went for a similar thing as managing and you know, managing different types of personalities. What advice do you have for business owners that are maybe struggling with managing someone that is perhaps a little bit more introverted, or vice versa, if they've got a bunch of the introverted people, but they've got someone like you and I who's got tons of ideas? What's your advice for someone to sort of be a little bit more agile and shift the kind of way that they're leading in that respect?
Okay. Firstly, have you ever heard of the term PLU?
PLU. I don't think I have, no.
It's people like us.
Okay.
And we're all victim to it, but we all
Mm.
gravitate to people like us.
Yeah, that
So
makes
when I
sense.
used to recruit within the team, I would imagine going out for a drink with the person or imagine talking to them about similar things that we like in common, the same music, people like us. And we do it, it's an unconscious bias, right?
Mhm.
So you have to be really intentional to think, am I recruiting this person because it's a PLU?
Yeah.
Or am I recruiting the person because they're the best person to deliver what I need them to do?
Mm.
And I think that's the first thing. And you have to be really vulnerable and open and honest about that. And it's
Mm.
painful because nobody wants to admit that they've unintentionally discriminated based on the fact that you think that they're just like you and you like them as a person. And you have to have those conversations with if your business is you and you're recruiting, but you're hiring managers. And we do that really openly across the business. You know, like with Natasha or Karen or Faye, when we recruit, we try not to talk through whether we like them. We try to talk about whether they have our values,
Mm,
they're going to behave like us, and they can do the job. And when I say behave like us, I don't mean we get on with them as people. I mean,
mm,
are they going to turn up? Are they going to really give us the same energy? Are they going to be really open with feedback? And are we
mm,
going to be able to work and mold and grow with this person? If the answer is yes to those things, you need to forget whether you like them as a person.
mm,
Because I work with people that have become friends,
mm,
but I work with people that we're very different, but have common ground because we're all here and we have the same value and mission. But
mm,
would I choose to go and spend my whole Sunday with some of them? Well, most of them, yes, but some of them, no, like very different things we're into,
mm,
and that's okay. Um, when it comes to recruiting, like you said, so we actually do something similar. We
mm,
talk through communication styles,
mm.
and there's different animals for different things. There's like the
Yeah,
lion, the
absolutely.
monkey, the
Yeah,
dolphin, the elephant, and the elephant's the analytical. I'm naturally a monkey, like probably you. That's the yellow.
yeah, that makes
Like I
sense.
will, yeah, but love referrals, love talking to people, and I
Mm,
have to try and be all of the different things dependent on who I'm talking to.
mhm,
The second point is you have to remember as well that when say for example, when I'm in a sales role,
mm,
when I'm trying to close people, I will really find it difficult to close an elephant or a blue
mhm,
because being a monkey, I want to close people quickly. I want it to be because they like me.
mhm.
And I want it to be because they just can feel that there's good energy and they're going to like working with me. An elephant wants to know the facts, the figures. They
So
want to know
logical.
what number they're going to give on your P&L because you're going to save the number. How quick is it going to take you to find me the people?
Mm,
How many CVs are you going to send? What's your retention like on the placements you make? And I would have no time for that because I just couldn't be bothered to look at the data. Right. So I'd just be like, oh, this is just annoying. Like,
yeah.
so play to your strengths. When there's a client or a candidate or who, you know, a new recruit that's coming into the business, I'm not the person that closes every deal.
Mm,
We use our strengths as a leadership team to pick the right person and we try and identify, right, okay, so that person that's joining the business, they tend to be a bit more of an elephant. Who is going to be the best person to try and communicate our vision with
mm,
them in that style? And we play tag, you know,
mm,
as a company, we play tag on the clients. We have a list of clients and we go, right, I've tried these clients for ages. They don't like me. They're really not gonna close with me. Karen, do you
mm,
want to pick up on that? And she'll go, yeah, okay. She'll try her style. And so I think it's just being open and vulnerable and saying, like, we know our downfalls.
mhm,
We know what we need to make us stronger. Us all sitting in the green is
mm,
actually really bad because we're
mm,
only ever going to work with other greens. Well, there's three other boxes here. So
mm,
how are we going to grow our market? Well, we need other people that can do a different skill set to us and go out and source those people.
mm. What you're talking about is what my interpretation on diversity has always been.
Mhm.
So as I mentioned, I had a diversity expert on the podcast, and we had a really, really good conversation. And she said that I was a bit of an anomaly because the way I've been brought up, I mean, three of my four grandparents were immigrants, one from South Africa, two from Cyprus.
Wow.
The grandparents from Cyprus built a business and went out of their way to hire people from all different backgrounds, all the rest of it. And that was in like the 50s, right?
Okay.
Um, but my whole thing is that when I was a manager, I had at like, the best time, it was me, Drew, and Oscar. Oscar was super detail orientated, very analytical. Drew was exceptionally direct, sometimes to the point where I was like, is he being rude or is he just like,
Yeah.
is he just to the bloody point? And he was exceptional at BD because he would speak to a VP and the VP would be like, right, terms 30%. All right, cool. He was just so direct to the point.
Get
And
it
I was
done.
just like the sunshine yellow, like just wanted everyone to love me and just like super dynamic, all the rest of it. And I remember someone commented when I posted a picture of us in like our suits, because back then everyone had to wear suits and ties in London. And they were just like, where's the diversity? Because it's three white blokes.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, yeah, you look at it like that. But I don't know whether it's because of what I've gone through in life, but and it sounds really gimpy when I say this, but like I don't look at people by their sex, their gender, their
Yeah.
sexual preference, their skin color. I look a little bit deeper. And what you said there about the animals and what I was saying about the colors, you could have a group of people from South Africa, Cyprus, England, all different colors, whatever. But if they're all greens, like you just said, there's a fucking problem, in
Yeah,
my opinion.
I
There
agree.
really is.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into like the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, because you seem to have built a phenomenal culture, and you said something that has really stuck with me, that the culture is like the immune system of the business.
Mhm.
And I think recruitment businesses at the moment, I think they've come a long way, probably since when you and I first started in recruitment, but there's still a lot of recruitment businesses that don't have very good cultures at all. Firstly, how would you describe your culture? If I was to come and work with you guys, how would you describe your culture?
Really good question. So I would say that I would like to think that everyone feels like they have a voice
Mm,
is really important to me. So whether, you know, okay, before I start, what I'm going to say
mm,
is that in a business with 50 people, I am sure there are people that are not happy,
yeah.
right? That's just the truth.
Mhm,
But on the whole, I don't think, and I'd like to believe, and I've got evidence for this, that when people leave because they don't like the job or
mm,
they decide to go and do something outside of recruitment, I very, very rarely have people that have anything bad to say about the business. We do
mhm,
exit interviews, we're friendly
mm,
with lots of them. We have
mm,
people that return,
mm.
which speaks volumes. I've had one lady in the business who's actually been back now her third time, and we've promised that if she leaves again, she's never coming back. That's the limit.
There was three times,
Um,
come on.
I don't want to paint a picture where we have the best culture all of the
Yeah.
time, right? Because recruitment's hard
Mm,
and it's for some people and it's not for others. But on the
mm,
whole, what I would like to think is common, the common culture across the business is that everyone feels like they have a voice, everyone feels like they're supported, but
mm,
everyone has accountability.
mm,
I can't support people if they're not going to show up and do the work. And I think that that's really important to get the two right. And people get that mixed up. Like,
mm,
it's not mine or your manager's job to make you a success. It's your job. But it's our job to support you and give you every tool and every insight and every bit of information and training that we can possibly do to enable you to be
mm,
successful. But you are accountable for your own success. And quite often in businesses, I see that people blame the business or other people, but don't want to look in the mirror.
mm,
And unfortunately, as harsh as it sounds, I'd say this, I'm saying this on the podcast, we can only go so far. And if you're meeting people 50% of the way and they're pulling 50% of their weight, there's a brilliant partnership there, and the likelihood is that
mm,
they're going to be successful. But sometimes you put in as much as you can, and people don't want to put in the hard work,
mm,
and they're not. I'd also say culture is only ever really tested when things are going wrong.
mhm. I get that.
There is a real correlation between culture and profit.
Mm,
And when profit declines, so for example, this year we haven't hit all of the goals that we've wanted to. We're a profitable business, so it's great,
mhm,
but we haven't hit all of the goals that we've wanted to, which is unusual for us as a company. We are used to winning. I
mm,
am used to winning.
mm,
I want to win. But when you don't win, I think is when you see the true characters of someone, when you're losing.
mm,
And that's when you see whether someone is still going to help others even though they're losing, can
yeah.
celebrate other people's wins even though they're losing,
Mhm,
can take feedback and bring themselves back from losing even
mm,
though they're losing. So I don't think culture is really something you should measure when you're successful. Culture should be something you measure when you're failing.
mm,
And failing doesn't have to be like, oh my God, the business is in dire straits, like we're in trouble. Failure could just be a bad month or one person having a bad month and looking at them and going, right, what are you going to do to pick yourself up? And so culture is a direct correlation to how the business can perform out of a bad time. And fortunately, remained pretty static on the people that we've employed from the beginning of the year to today. There have been some people that have left, there's 50 of us,
mm,
but they're still fighting the ones that aren't successful and we're still fighting with them.
mm,
And I think that's really important to me.
mm,
But I genuinely also, Charles, think that probably, look, I've never worked within another recruitment business, so I've got nothing to compare it to. You are probably better at comparing this than I am. When we're losing, we own it.
mm,
So many businesses just don't do that. Like they'll brush it under the carpet or start firing people or blaming. Like we'll say, look, guys, the numbers aren't where they should be. Collectively, what can we do? What can we share?
Mm,
How can we get there together? Who can help who? Oh, I've got this client over there. Or I've done this tactic. This worked really well. This week worked really well. And
mm,
so it's a collaborative effort to make us all win.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think kind of going back to your question on like the whole culture is your immunity, it really is.
Mm,
And when someone comes in here like a bug to try and dent the immunity, you have to trust that everyone in that immune system is looking at that person and go, this is a problem, not the culture of, okay, we'll accept them, it's going to start poisoning, it's going to start breaking down the walls. It has to be the time where everyone goes, that's a problem,
mm.
and calls it.
There's so many things that you've said there that I agree with, and I've worked for quite a few different businesses, and obviously since been running my business, I've worked with a lot of businesses, gone into a lot of businesses, offices, etc. If I were to explain the best culture without naming names of businesses, the best culture I was a part of for a period of time, every single month we would have like a monthly wrap where it's you everyone's reminded of what our values are and
Mhm.
how we express our values. There's no point saying honesty and professionalism without actually demonstrating that.
Yeah.
So how do we live and breathe our values? What is our mission? Where do we want to be? And where are we against that mission? What is the vision long term? Are we going to open an office here? Are we going to hire? Are we going to open that market, etc.? And everyone in the business is living and breathing the mission, the vision, and the values collaboratively.
Mhm.
Everybody in the business has a voice, whether you are a trainee consultant or a director, you're always listened to, you're always supported, you always have accountability, but there's expectations.
Yeah.
So if you're a trainee consultant or a director of the business, if you're not hitting target, you're not improving your skill, if you don't have the will, the expectation is that there is going to be a time as a business that unfortunately we have to say
Yeah.
goodbye, and that's just business.
That is just business.
And if gone,
No, I was just going to say one bit of advice that I've had throughout my career, and I've heard it from many different sources, is that look, people exit businesses all the time, whether it's they choose to leave or they're not right for the company and the company
mm,
decides to depart ways. That individual should always know that's coming.
always.
And if they don't, then you've got a problem.
Mm,
And I've been in many rooms where I've sacked, fired, got rid of loads of people throughout my career, and
mm,
I've done it really badly in
mm,
some situations where I've put off having the conversation. You have the conversation, they're shocked, they leave, and now I'm older and I guess more experienced. I understand that that is really
mm,
wrong. You
mm,
don't treat people like that. You need to give them a fair chance. You need to speak to them openly. But I guess that's also just part of learning. And you never get it right. And even now, I'll still make mistakes. But as long as you're learning along the way,
mm.
then that's really important. I'm interested to ask you a question, Charles. What's the worst type of environment and culture you've ever been in, and why?
God, where do I begin? Um, so if I were to summarize the worst aspects of cultures that I've been a part of, one is complete and utter lack of communication.
Okay.
So we don't know where the business is going. We don't know what the plan is for the business. We don't know where the business owner is today. No one knows. There's no clear structure for the business. A lot of recruitment businesses, and I'm guilty of this. I've got an idea. Let's run it. Let's run with this idea, and then a week later it disappears. That
Yeah.
just the credibility across the business will just get demolished if you're just not congruent and don't follow through with your actions. There's no clear processes with things. Beer, wine, prosecco is the answer to everything. No, it's not. Especially, especially this day and age. I've worked in recruitment businesses where some of the owners and some of the directors were recovering alcoholics, and when things were
Yeah.
really tough, they would go, "I've just bought everyone beer," and it's like, right, okay, it's Monday, and you've just bought 100 beers for people, and we've all got to come in the office tomorrow. And then everyone comes in the office tomorrow, everyone's hungover, they're wearing sunglasses at the desk, and then you're clapping your hands going, why aren't you on the phone? And you're
Yeah.
like, well, you've just gone and got everyone drunk last night because things are tough. Like that's your old way of dealing with things. You're not an alcoholic anymore. Now you've got everyone pissed and now everyone can't work for the rest of the day. Like, what are you doing? Like you can't, like culture for me isn't going down to the pub. Yes, every now and then going to the pub. And don't get me wrong, I've got clients now where I have bonded with them so much because we got absolutely shit faced on a Thursday night in London and just talked like about our childhoods and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you can't do that every fucking week. You just can't do that. And then you wonder why performance is going down. And that's another thing as well is when I talked a lot about values, I've worked in businesses that they don't have values. They think values are bullshit. And I'm like scratching my head going, what the fuck? Like this doesn't make any sense. And then someone does something in the office and they go, that's not right. How do you know that's not
Yeah,
right?
it's a
Because
measure.
you've not communicated what the correct behaviors are, what the consensus is, what your values are. So if someone's done something what you deem to be wrong, they don't know they've done that wrong because you've not communicated it correctly.
Yeah.
So I've gone through all that type of stuff now. When I go into a business, I can kind of spot things and I sit down with business owners now and go, like, this isn't being communicated properly. You're not holding that person accountable. You have no clear process for that. You've put this idea in, but you've just let it go after a week. Why have you done that? And thankfully, the people I work with now, they're like, right, okay, we'll be strict with this. Where I've worked with companies before, and they just don't give a toss.
I don't care.
And the last thing I will say, sorry, the last thing I will say is you can really quickly see a business that's profit over people. And we work in the people industry.
Yeah.
And I think if you're hiring people and your sole thing is they need to be profitable, they need to make my business money, but you do not give a fuck about that individual, you're going to lose people. That's my last thing I'll say.
Yeah. How many times have you seen really big billers not be sacked for really poor behavior because they're big billers?
Yep. 100%. I done some really dumb shit in the office when I was a high biller. But
Yeah.
my boss would pull me aside and say, what you've just done there is not in line with our values. It's not the behavior I expect from someone like you. You need to grow up. And I'm like, fair. Like the worst thing for me when I was a recruiter and a manager, I was undiagnosed ADHD. I didn't understand time management at all. I have this thing called like time blindness. So I would get ready in the morning and think that 10 minutes is enough time to do my entire morning routine. And
Yeah.
luckily now my wife will go, you need like 20 minutes, not 10 minutes. But my brain will go, no, I can do it in 5.
Yeah.
When I was in recruitment, I can go, I'll leave the house at 7 to get the 7:10 train. It's a 20-minute walk. What the fuck is going through my mind? So I was late every single day. And my boss sat me down and just said, I want to break down your routine. I want to break down your evening routine and your morning routine because you've been late and I don't want to give you a disciplinary. You're a fucking grown adult. What is your actual routine? And he broke down my routine for me. And then when I looked at it on paper, Laura, I was like, yeah,
That's a good
actually,
leader
that's
though, right?
phenomenal. It's a shout out
Most
to
people
Liam.
would just say you're late and give you a disciplinary or
Yeah,
be
I got fired from every single job before that, pretty much. Yeah, because no one could ever sit down, take the time,
and
but
understand
and
you.
understand me. And when he done that, I'm not afraid to admit, I broke down into tears and I was like, you're the first person that's ever sat down and actually tried to understand why this is. I didn't understand why I was always late.
Yeah.
I just always got told, you've got a problem, fix up, grow up. But I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, but I've tried so many things I don't understand. Like, why am I being late all the time? And then when he done that, I was only late a couple more times because the train was delayed. It's not my fault. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Before it was my fault, but I didn't know how to manage it. That for me is a great leader and a
Yeah.
great
I agree.
representation of a good culture, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because they actually cared about you and wanted to help you.
Yeah. And that for me as well, like every single person I meet, like every trainee recruiter for even up to director now, I always say to them at the end of every single call, if you ever need anything, even if I don't work with you, it's not going to cost anything. Drop me a message. You've got my mobile, call me. Because my whole thing is I got into this industry and I set up this business because I want to help people.
Oh,
So when
yeah.
I go into businesses now, I'm like, if you look after these people, you train them up really, really well, support them personally, not just professionally, they will stay longer and you
Yeah.
won't have to keep replacing them. So yeah, I'm as you can see, I'm fucking very passionate about all that type of stuff.
Yeah, it's good though. And I love
Mm.
that story because it just does show the difference in a really good leader.
100%, 100%. Well, look, the other topic we were going to discuss that I wanted to pick your brains about because we had a really conversation about this on the phone. Obviously, recruitment is a very male-dominated industry, right? When we spoke, you had a very different perspective to a lot of other women that unfortunately, and I don't think this is solely for women, but unfortunately, there's a lot of this victim mentality, especially in my generation and Generation Z, blaming the world. I can't get the opportunity. Like I said to somebody yesterday, statistically, I should be broke. I should be a gambling addict. I should be on drugs. Statistically, because of my upbringing and the ADHD, I'm not. I don't have that victim mentality. My mum would never allow me to have that victim mentality. But I see it a lot with, and unfortunately, I might get in trouble for saying this, but I see it a lot in women that are like, I don't have the same opportunities. I'm afraid of making calls in front of the guys in the office and looking silly, etc. Look, I get that there are issues there, right?
Absolutely.
But what I want to kind of promote through this podcast and through my business is we can do things to change the narrative and raise awareness, sure. But what can we intrinsically do ourselves? Because there's no point me sitting here and going, oh, because of my ADHD, I can't do this. I had to fucking take action myself. So I'm just gonna just give the mic to you, Laura. What is your sort of thoughts about all that type of stuff?
Where do I start? Where do I start, Charles? Look, I've kind of been on a journey with this, and I'm going to tell you that journey slightly because it might kind of put some perspective on it. Growing up, starting my career, I never was even aware of some of the things that I'd been through, whether it be clients commenting on the way that I look, whether it be, I've had some really kind of like, if I reflect, not okay comments made to me by men and actually by women in some respects, but about particularly my age, the way I look, my sex. But I was never aware of it being discriminative. I didn't care. And I think that helped me massively, the naivety of going, well, he's just a bit of a dick. I don't need to work with him. I can work with all these other people and just cracking on. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist because it does. And I'm not saying that in businesses that men don't make decisions around who they play golf with or go to the pub with. It happens, right? So first of all, I just want to address the fact that I am not for a second saying that women aren't discriminated. I also think men are discriminated, people of colour, people of different genders, people of religion. There's discrimination all over the place. My view on it is you can choose who you surround yourself with. So number one, if you feel that you're in an environment where you're being discriminated against for whatever reason, and you've got a ceiling over your head in terms of progression because it's men that's stopping you, women that's stopping you, you have a choice. Leave the job, go and work with people that value what you add, move on, and just don't pay too much energy to it. Because the energy that you place trying to change people that aren't going to be changed is only going to hinder your progression and your well-being. That's kind of the way that I look at it. If someone wants to be, I'm going to talk about specifically sexist. If someone's going to be sexist towards me, the chances are I'm not the first woman that they've done it to, and I'm not going to be the last, and I'll call it and then I'll move on. Because it's not my position, it's not my place, it's not my energy. I don't want to give that to that person. Move on, off you go. And I won't get irate about it. And if anything, I kind of find it quite humorous and think, that's on you, you're an idiot. Let's move on. However, I do think that women are incredible and that we have such potential and ability and vulnerability and skills that we can offer businesses or wherever we decide to put that. And we should be more confident in that. And we should be more forthcoming with that. And we should be less frightened of the rejection and more braver with our intentions and decisions. You can't blame people for not giving you an opportunity if you've not asked for the opportunity. So we just got to ask. And I think that we have to be really accountable for that. Like there's stats, right? And I'm probably going to get them wrong, but it's something like men will apply to a job if they believe they can do 50% of the job. Women will apply for a job if they believe they can do 85% of a job. That 35% gap means that far fewer women are putting themselves forward and men are more likely to get the job. That's an us problem. Apply for the job. Put yourself at the table. Put yourself where you think you're going to belong. No one is going to come knocking at your door and saying, hey, I thought you were great, let's give you a promotion. You've got to go and fight for it. And so I think that there's two sides to it. Number one, like I said, don't surround yourself by people that may be holding you back for whatever reason. And secondly, put yourself forward for as many things as you can and be okay with the rejection. Because if it's rejection, we've had this so many times, you're no further backwards than what you were before you asked anyway. And if anything, you might get some feedback as to why it was a no and be able to improve on it and go again. So look, I'm not a massive fan of the whole female piece. And actually, I've argued and debated with many people on it. And I 100% see the other side of it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be proud of where we've come. We shouldn't be proud of the things that we've achieved. But I equally think that I am just as what's the word? I am just as equal to a man. So why do I need to identify myself as a
Mm,
female? I deserve the opportunity as much as you do. And if a man said to me, I didn't get the job because I'm a man, I'd find that quite offensive. So I don't want to ever put people in that position. If
yeah.
I genuinely feel like I'm being discriminated against, I will say with evidence, I think this because you said
Mm,
X, Y, and Z. But the reason why you don't get a job is not normally because you're a female or a male, it's because of a
mm,
skill set or because you didn't put yourself forward in the first
mm,
place. So I think it's just how we interpret it. I interpret sexism as more for you.
mm,
And that's it for me.
mm. It's an interesting take. I have a bit of a theory as to why, we were talking earlier about like psychological traits that typically men have and women have and vice versa. Um, Men are typically more risk taking and men are typically, especially in recruitment, more willing to endure rejection.
Mhm.
And my theory, I must have heard this somewhere, but I was thinking about this. I spoke to my wife and I always have like the gender, sex debates and stuff like that. And we agree on a lot of these types of things. But I asked her, how many times have you chatted up a guy at a bar or at school, asked for a boy's number at school or something, and then rejected in front of people? She was like, never.
No.
That's just in the UK, like you won't do that. I was like,
Full
I
stop.
have,
Although
yeah,
I don't know, I've seen
I'm
it.
sure there are some people.
Yeah.
I've probably maybe a one or two times been like approached by a woman on a night out or whatever.
Mhm.
The amount of times, because I wouldn't necessarily like when I go out with my brother's like 6'2", dark, handsome. Everyone just looks at him. I
Yeah.
had to just like charm someone with just chatting shit, right? No one is ever going to approach me. They used to approach my brother. But the amount of times I have been embarrassed in front of large groups of people because I'm a risk taker and I'll be like, can I grab your number? It's like, you, what, 4'10", Charlie, fuck off, like that. And everyone's laughing. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'd come home and I speak to my uncle. I was like, I got really embarrassed in school today because I tried to ask this girl out and everyone's like just taking the mic. It's fine, on to the next.
Yeah.
There's plenty more fish in the sea. And I'm like, right. So I learned from like a young age that just rejection is just a thing that you're going to have to encounter. And my mum running a business as well, trying to win a client, and the client says, "Can you discount your price?" And she's like, "Absolutely no fucking chance. I'm really good at what I do." And they're like, "Well, I'm not going to work with you." Cool. All right, see ya.
Yeah.
But she's just got a rejection there, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, "Oh, she's bounced back from that." Do you know what I mean? So I think, yeah, but that's kind of one of my theories as to why men are potentially more willing to endure rejection. Could be wrong, but
No,
that's
no, no.
just
Do you know, it's
anecdotal.
funny. So I've got a close friend of mine talks about this a lot online, and I'm going to steal her line.
Mm,
And I think this is really true, right? So if you want to practice that, putting yourself out there, it should
mm,
start really small. So, for example, I was in my local coffee shop yesterday with
mm,
Faye because she was allowed to talk to me yesterday, my FD, and I was buying her a coffee, and I said to the guy that was behind the what is it called, coffee machine, whatever
yeah.
it is. He was the manager, and I knew he was the manager because I
Mm,
drink coffee from there all the time. And I said to him, "Do you know I'm one of your most loyal customers?" And he
mm.
laughed. He said, "I know you come every day." I said, "I've never been given a free coffee before." And he just looked at me and went, "Well, it's not going to be today either." And I was like, "Oh, worth a try." And but I do stuff like that all the time without even meaning to. And Faye's there like wanting to die and like but I will always try my luck with things. Like, and
Yeah.
I just quite enjoy being cheeky. And that actually came from my mum. My mum, I used to die of embarrassment going out with my mum. And I'm going to tell you a really funny story for her that's been ingrained in me, right? So
Mm,
years ago, before you used to have to get a ticket to the train to get through the gates, you just had to
mm.
buy a ticket and trust that you bought one and sit on the
Yeah,
train.
yeah.
We used to go to London to and fro. And one particular day, she was taking me London to go shopping. I think I must have been about 13, 14 years old.
Mm,
And my mum has no problem like financially buying me a ticket. She just chose to not buy tickets today to save some money. Don't know why. Sat on the train. Sitting on the train, ticket officer comes through. And I remember saying to her, "Mum," like I kicked her, she was opposite me. There's the ticket officer. And she looked at
oh
me,
God.
all right. She picked up her phone and got up and pretended to be on the phone and walked off and left me. And I got the fine basically for her. And I was livid the whole day. And she just didn't care. She just had this like mentality of like, well, it's a £50 fine, but I've probably saved hundreds of pounds not buying a ticket. Probably unethical. So, I'm going to get into that. But she just had this like way about her where I would be mortified continuously about the things that she would do to just push her luck. Whereas now I see that in me and I'm like, oh my God, I'm turning into my mum. But I'm so proud of that because I've always been brought up in an environment that ask for a little bit of money off that, ask for a
Mm,
free coffee, ask if you can do something that you're not meant to really do, like break the rules. And I think that, I don't know whether it's society, it's just a kind of like a whole deep thing, but I look at my children, right? And
mm,
they go to school and they come out this person that's told to follow rules, do tests, put their hand up, only speak when spoken to.
hmm
And I think there's a place for that because you don't want loads of, I don't want four mini criminals, but equally, like, I want to teach them to, well, is that true? You know, like you've been taught that today.
mm,
Have you asked a bit about that? Like, is that really the truth? Like, just thinking things differently and taking
mm,
a different approach and
mm,
going, you know, I've been told no on that. Okay, well, ask again. Next time I go and ask for a coffee, if he's in there, I'm going to ask him again, and he will
mm.
give me a free coffee because I just want to get a free coffee. I don't need a free coffee, but I find it now like a bit of a mission. So I think
Love
you
that.
can try and test these things outside of going and asking for a bigger salary or applying for a job. Just
Mm,
put yourself out there.
mm. I love it. It sounds like your mum and my mum are so similar. Like every single time,
She's
my
driving
mum,
me mental.
it's same. I was so embarrassed being out because she'd end up having like a 20-minute conversation with like the
Yep.
person, like she's just paid for her shopping. And then she'd be like, oh yeah, so how long you went here for then? Is
Yeah.
this what you've always wanted to do? I'm like, Mum, we've got things to do.
This
Go. She's
is
like, I'm just
my
having a
mum.
conversation, Charlie. I'm like,
Yeah. This is my mum. Yeah.
oh God.
Yeah.
So what's it been like this? How old are your kids? You got four.
I've got four. So I've got a 13-year-old, a
Hmm
9-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 2-year-old.
Bloody hell, that's a handful. What's it been like then having four kids while trying to run 50-person business?
It's really, really tough.
Mm,
The logistics of it is tough. The thinking about four different other people apart from yourself and a business is tough.
mm,
But I absolutely love it. I'm
mm,
always on the go. I feel like I'll sleep when I'm dead, and I'm just like one of these people that I wouldn't change it for the world. I get asked this all the time, and honestly, I feel like I'm repeating myself every single time I answer saying, I don't know how you do it, you just do it.
mm,
And every day is different, and every technique that I use from week to week will depend on what my diary looks like at work and what it's
mm,
like at home. And you just have to muddle through. Like John, we're not actually married, but the father of all my children.
mhm,
And we're just a really good tag team. If I've got a
mm,
big day and I'm like, can you get the kids? And if he's got a big day, I'll get the kids, and we just tag team.
mm. That's phenomenal. I mean, it's just inspirational, really, Laura. Like, because like I said to you, this week alone, I've met so many female recruiters, right? And they all had when I've done like the diagnostic analytical first session with them all, they all had the same types of things. And I said to a couple of recruiters that I worked with recently that I have been on a journey not to solely I want to have women on the podcast. I just want to have good fucking people on the podcast. I want to have humans that can add value, that are passionate, that work in this industry. And I've had a lot of women on the podcast recently. They've added a lot of value. And I think there is a general similar similar type of mindset to be successful. And it's the same for fucking men, to be honest with you. It's the same principles to be successful as men. And I'm going to take a lot away from the conversation with you when I do start working with a lot more of these women. Just I just want to empower them to just not be afraid, take the fucking risk. Like if you get rejected, it's fine. Like you're gonna get knocked down in recruitment a lot. A boxer doesn't become a boxer thinking they're never going to get hit. They're going to get hit and they're going to have to stand back up again. It's the same thing as recruitment.
Yeah, I agree. And I've learned just as much from you, Charles. I think you're doing a great job.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Well, look, the question that I finish every episode with is following today's show, how can people get 1% better in recruitment?
Okay. So I'm glad that you've asked me that because I have now prepared, thanks to you. My advice is shut up, listen more, and be curious. You've got two ears and one mouth, and I know that that's something that you say to your kids. But honestly, I have experienced so many times where I would have learned so much more if I'd have just been quiet. Just be quiet, just listen and embrace everyone's feedback. Be curious, ask great questions, and that will in itself open doors and opportunities.
That's phenomenal, phenomenal advice. I will add on to that. Something I really struggled with was exactly that. And my old managing director, Tim, he used to take the piss because I would ask such incredibly good, curious, open questions, but then I would answer the question for the candidate, or they would say something, and then you would give me the answer, and then I'll go, right, so what about this? What about that? Sometimes what he would do, he'd come over to my desk and press like we had like a desk phone, and he would press the mute button, and he would just do this, shut the fuck up. And I'm like, Tim, what the fuck? I'm on the phone to a candidate. Don't do that. And he went, you talk too much. You ask good questions. Trust your questions and shut up. And
Let them
from
talk.
from a leadership, from a coaching, and even from the podcast perspective, there are so many times where I've got such interesting guests like yourself where my brain goes, oh, what about that? What about that? What about that? And it is just a case of just mentally push that mute button and listen. And sometimes if you just give that extra 3, 4, 5 seconds, people will just give you so much more information. So that's phenomenal advice.
Thank you, Charles. You've been amazing.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Well, if everyone has got to this point, like, subscribe on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the monthly newsletter. By this point, it should exceed, but we recorded this on the 8th of November, and it hit over 1,000 subscribers on the newsletter, which is amazing. And follow Laura Clark on LinkedIn, right? So that's the main thing to reach out to you. She posts really, really good content. Her business is growing so much at the moment. You've done one speaking gig this year, is it? Or have you done some more speaking gigs?
I've done one.
Done one, yeah. Are you going to be doing any more in 2025?
I've applied. I will see.
Yeah, nice. I've applied for one, but yeah, I've been told by multiple people that I need to do it more. So I'm going to hopefully do some more as well. So fingers crossed, we can hold each other accountable to do some more speaking
that
gigs
can be our
next year.
mission.
Amazing. All right, Laura, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you very much for listening. And until next time.
Thank you.